sounds good, inshallah. Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. We begin with the name of Allah, the Merciful, and we bear witness that there are none worthy of worship except Him, and we bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is His final messenger. Alhamdulillah, the topic that I was tasked with today was success. And it's definitely a loaded topic in terms of the literature that's on success and the amount that Islam has talked about success, the amount that the Quran has talked about success. But it's actually one of those that to define it is not very difficult. And if I were to ask, I'm not going to because that would take up quite a bit of time, but if I were to ask, what is success or what does it mean to be successful, then I have no doubt that in this call, the people that we have are going to cover exactly what success is, because it's very clearly been defined. Allah Azza wa Jalla in one place, He says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ, that the believers have succeeded, they're successful, right? And then it goes into the descriptions of it. In that particular place, Allah Azza wa Jalla, He mentions about them, الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِلزَّكَاةِ فَاعِلُونَ وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِفُرُوجِهِمْ حَافِظُونَ. And it goes on describing them. And then in other places in the Quran, it describes in the very beginning of the Quran as well, right? الذين يؤمنون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة ومما رزقناهم ينفقون والذين يؤمنون بما أنزل إليك وما أنزل من قبل وبالآخرة هم يوقنون أولئك على هدى من ربهم وأولئك هم المفلحون. So it's been made very, very clear what success is, and success has actually been defined in the scope of the akhirah and not in the scope of the dunya. And that's one important point that I wanted to make, that we know what success is. That if I were to give an example of a person that has no academic accolades, no money, all they had was belief in Allah Azza wa Jal, and another person that had all of these accolades and all of this wealth when they died, but they rejected the message when it came to them, then we would be unanimous, we would be agreed on the fact that the first of them was successful. Because whatever the second one had, what they didn't have was the only thing that would lead to their success, because success is defined by purpose. And our purpose is to worship Allah Azza wa Jal. That's the very reason that Allah Azza wa Jal tells us that we were created to worship Him. And so we define our success through His worship. We define our success by His acceptance. And we define our success by the station that we'll hold in the hereafter. And so in that sense, there is no question about what success means in the Islamic perspective. Success is whatever leads you to that point, leads you to the acceptance and the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal. And that's been defined through the Quran. Where I wanted to shift it a little bit is the way that we actually view success in the dunya. Because oftentimes we talk about, okay, you can be successful in the dunya and the akhirah. Great. Ahsan. Very good. And when we talk about it, we talk about success in the terms of, all right, you can get this really, really good degree, and then you can get this job, and you can get success in our academia, success in our career, and success in our social standing. Yes, that's how we define success in the dunya. But actually, when it comes to Islam, none of these hold any meaning. None of these, neither academia, nor career, nor social standing, hold any meaning unless they lend itself to what our goal and our purpose is. So what that means is oftentimes what we look at as a successful person is someone who's worshipping, and along with someone who's worshipping and dedicated themselves to Allah Azza wa Jal, someone who, is going to med school, becoming a doctor, becoming an engineer, holds a very good job, makes a lot of money, has this many degrees, right? It's fine to have all of those things. But none of those things can be considered as success or as part of being successful unless they lend themselves to our religion, and they lend themselves to our strive in the acceptance of Allah Azza wa Jal. Unless they lend itself to that, it's actually not a part of our success. And so we have often this idea that, you know what, the success of the dunya and the success of the akhirah are kind of two roads. They're not, because success is only that which gives you a good station in the akhirah. And what's successful about this dunya, is whatever lends to it. And if you think about it, the Quran actually mentions in a few different places, but it mentions the concept that on that day there will be people that that day is يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ. Right? That's a day in which wealth nor children are going to benefit. لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ. They're not going to benefit. إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهُ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. Except for the one who comes to Allah Azza wa Jal with a sound heart. So no amount of wealth, no amount of children are going to benefit a person. And this is kind of the perception that we need to start living with. That we talk about dunyawi success as these degrees and things like that, and that's fine, whatever. But that is only successful. That part of our life, our career and our children and our social standing, all of that, we need to start viewing as only successful if it lends itself to our station in the hereafter. Because when we're going to be standing in front of Allah Azza wa Jal, all of these other things aren't going to matter. They'll only mean anything to us if it's something that made Allah Azza wa Jal more pleased with us. That's the only way that it'll matter. And when you talk about an infinite world or an infinite life, versus a finite one, then the success is only the success of that infinite one. And so even our career, even our academia, and even our social standing, they are not successful in and of themselves, or in and of itself. But they are only successful and only considered successful if they lend themselves to the religion. That's the first key thing that I wanted to mention, because we know what success is. When we talk about it, we know, success is the worship of Allah Azza wa Jal. No doubt. We have no doubt in that. And it's not some hidden secret. It's all been laid out, right? The Quran was revealed to mankind. It's not some obscure secret that we hadn't discovered for thousands of years. No, it's something that we know very well. But then the way that we end up applying it is that we have two standards for success. And one is where we judge the success of the akhirah, and the other is where we judge the success of the dunya. But how will any of the success of the dunya matter if the akhirah is the infinite life? If it's the infinite life, then the only success of the dunya is that which lends itself to the akhirah. And there is no superiority in any career choice, or any amount of wealth, or any amount of social standing, other than that it is something that will be used to earn the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal. But that's the first thing that I wanted to hit on. And the second one is one place where success is talked about. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. That the one who has success is the one that purifies it, and purifies what it's mentioning, the soul that's mentioned a few verses before that. Who purifies the soul. وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. And he's lost the one who corrupts it. So what does it mean to have a purified soul? Where does that purification come from? And even this actually isn't that complicated. If you look at the very things that are obligated on us, each and every one of them have a component of purification. So you're keeping on top of your worship, so doing what Allah Azza wa Jal has obligated, and staying away from what Allah Azza wa Jal has prohibited. That right there, right? That's something that's going to purify the soul. But even on top of that, I want to get to another level on top of that. And that would be engaging with the Quran. One, right? That's the month that we're in, the month of the Quran. Engaging with the Quran and frequenting the remembrance of Allah Azza wa Jal. and frequenting the reflection or the pondering of the signs that Allah Azza wa Jalla has created. And this is the part that sometimes is missing. And the problem with that is that, we'll be on top of our religion, but it'll just be something that we do. We'll be on top of, okay, you know what, we're praying our 5 daily prayers. We're fasting when Ramadan comes. We're giving 2.5% of our wealth for zakah. Right? We'll be doing those things. But then there will be so many people, in fact, most people, that they'll have prayed their entire lives, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. And not a single one of those prayers will have made them cry. Not a single time that they stood behind the Imam have they cried listening to the Quran. This is not a heart that finds itself purified. This is not a heart that's in a person that is successful. Because if Allah Azza wa Jalla says that the believers are successful, that they are the ones that have earned success, then Allah Azza wa Jalla also describes the believers to be those that إِذَا ذُكِرَ اللَّهُ وَجِلَتْ قُلُوبُهُم, that when they remember Allah, their hearts start to tremble. وَإِذَا تُلِيَتْ عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُهُ, and when the verses are recited upon them, زَادَتْهُمْ إِيمَانًا, then it increases them in their faith, in their iman. And yet there are so many Muslims that will have been praying their entire lives, reading the Quran their entire lives, and not shed a single tear for it. That's not a successful heart. That's not a heart that's mentioned in قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا, the one our soul that's been purified. Because that is one that when it hears the verses of the Quran, then it increases them in iman. So what we need to do is start engaging a little bit more with the Quran, getting to its meaning, and then even farther than that, to remember Allah Azza wa Jal frequently. And sometimes, unfortunately, even our worship is devoid of the remembrance of Allah. That we'll pray, we'll do the actions, we'll do everything, but yet in our minds we won't associate it with Allah Azza wa Jal. It'll just be actions that we're doing. And how do we stand there and have a conversation? Right? This is what the Fatiha is. And yet, we're not even conscious of Allah Azza wa Jal as we're praying. But this is a reality that many people find themselves in. That they will pray and they will fast, but they won't think of Allah Azza wa Jal while doing it. And it's because it's not something that we're used to. And we need to make it a habit to frequently remember Allah Azza wa Jal. That we're involved in the dhikr of the morning and the evening. We try to make dhikr. After our prayers, we try to make dhikr. And you know what? When we have a complaint, this was one of the beautiful things about the prophets. If you read their stories, any of the prophets, that they would converse with Allah Azza wa Jal. They would complain to Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah, this is going wrong. I don't understand this. This one isn't making any sense to me. Conversing with Allah Azza wa Jal, because who else is going to purify our heart except for Allah Azza wa Jal? And the last thing that I wanted to mention, inshallah, hopefully still within my time, is to reflect and ponder upon the signs that Allah Azza wa Jal has created. That through the Quran, and we've probably heard it the entirety of this Ramadan, right? As we've been praying behind the Imam, as we've been going through the Quran, that Allah Azza wa Jal mentions that, oh, and this has been made a sign, and that has been made a sign, and in the alternation of the day and the night is a sign, and all of these things have been made signs. Then how do we not reflect on them? That if Allah Azza wa Jal has said that this is a sign of what? This is a sign of Allah Azza wa Jal. This is a sign of His greatness, of His majesty. Then what about a heart and a soul that does not reflect upon these signs? That we pass by them and we don't give any thought to it. That we see them day in and day out and we don't give any thought to it. We believe in Allah Azza wa Jal, and yet we don't care to really ponder upon the signs. But this is a crucial part of softening that heart, making it more receptive to that message, lending itself to success. Because a hardened heart, it cannot find itself successful. It cannot find itself successful. And so to make sure that we make an active effort to put ourselves in positions to actually That Allah Azza wa Jal, He mentioned this thing in the Quran as a sign. I'm going to ponder upon it. I want to see what it means. I want to see what it feels like. And so we make sure that we take that and make it a part of our success. That our hearts and our souls, they're geared for that success that Allah Azza wa Jal, He talks about. And so just to wrap it up, success is defined simply in the Quran as that which the believers have. It's always defined as a worship of Allah Azza wa Jal. It's always defined as something good in the religion. It's never been attributed to anything of the dunya. And the only way that anything of the dunya has become successful, has been made successful, is when it's lent itself to the akhirah. And loss has actually been defined as the norm. Illa, except for what the religion has. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. So the only way that we find success and the only way that we become successful is the deeper we go into the religion. And my tips for this, and obviously the worship has been made clear to us, right? The obligations have been made clear to us. The prohibitions have been made clear to us. But the things that we sometimes neglect is taking the Quran and actually pondering upon it. Frequenting conversations with Allah Azza wa Jal, that He may open our heart. And reflecting upon the signs that Allah Azza wa Jal has given to us, that we may loosen our hearts a little bit, soften our hearts a little bit, that they become the hearts of successful people, and that what we did in this dunya can actually benefit us in the hereafter. May Allah Azza wa Jal allow us the tawfiq to do exactly that. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم اجعلنا من المفلحين، اللهم اجعلنا من المفلحين، اللهم اجعلنا من الصديقين والصالحين، اللهم اجعلنا من الراشدين. اللهم اجعل القرآن ربيع قلوبنا ونور صدورنا وجلاء أحزاننا. اللهم اجعل القرآن حجة لنا ولا تجعله حجة علينا. اللهم أجرنا من النار، اللهم أجرنا من النار، اللهم أعتق رقابنا من النار، اللهم أعتق رقابنا ورقاب آبائنا وأمهاتنا وإخواننا وأخواتنا وأزواجنا وذرياتنا من النار. اللهم كما بلغتنا رمضان بلغنا ليلة القدر. اللهم كما بلغتنا رمضان بلغنا ليلة القدر. اللهم كما بلغتنا رمضان بلغنا ليلة القدر. اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عنا. اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عنا. اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عنا. Oh Allah, make us from those that are successful, make us from those that are truthful, make us from those that are righteous. Oh Allah, forgive us of our sins. Oh Allah, free us from the fire of Jahannam. Oh Allah, protect our necks from the fire and protect the necks of our parents and of our fathers and our mothers and our brothers and our sisters and our spouses and our children. Protect all our necks from the fire, oh Allah. Oh Allah, you are the one that loves to forgive. So forgive us, Ya Allah. You are the one who forgives, Ya Allah. You love to forgive, so forgive us, Ya Allah. Oh Allah, make the Quran a guide for us and make it an intercessor for us and a witness for us and not against us. Oh Allah, as you have allowed us to see the month of Ramadan, then allow us to see the month of the night of Laylatul Qadr. As you have allowed us to see Ramadan, then allow us to see Laylatul Qadr as well and allow us to benefit from it. And may Allah make us from those that are forgiven during this month of Ramadan and not those that have lost. May make us from those that are successful in this life and not those that have lost. And may Allah Azza wa Jal allow us a company close to you in the hereafter, in the highest levels of paradise, amongst the ranks of the prophets and the martyrs and the righteous and the truthful. Ya Allah. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
ज़हीर भाई और नवाज़ की दुआ करें, अल्लाह ताला ज़हीर भाई और
जज़ाकल्लाह खैर।